Now, this is the final countdown to the domestic debt exchange deadline in just 4 days, and government has locked down another agreement today, the third of its kind this time with the Securities Industry Association. The Ghana Association of Bankers was the first to okay amendment to the initial terms of the exchange program. Ghana Insurance Association then followed. The three institutional bondholders will now receive a 5% coupon payment in 2023 and 9% for the 12 new bonds that will be issued. There is also now clarity on how to assess the stabilization fund designed to prevent the collapse of heavily exposed financial institutions. We also understand that government is likely to propose some new terms for individuals with investment in collective schemes and mutual funds, but there's still no certainty on whether or not the finance minister will agree to exempt individual bondholders. My colleague George Weafe has been working his sources and joins me with more on this. George, walk us through the details of the agreement with this.
So now there is an official statement to that effect signed by the president of the Ghana Securities Industry Association, as well as the Minister of Finance, Ken Ofori-Atta. And if you go through that statement, what you get is that the Ghana Securities Industry Association, made up of capital market operators, mutual funds, and all those people, are going to get the similar terms that was offered to the commercial banks and the insurers. So let's take the bonds. And initially, government wasn't going to pay anything to coupon holders in 2023. What government had decided to offer to these capital market operators is that in 2023, they're going to get 5% as coupon payment for this year, and then the 12 new bonds that will be issued, they'll get a coupon payment of 9%. Also, there is clarity on how these capital market operators can access the financial stability fund in terms of the disbursement and all those things. There's some clarity, so that is why they're going ahead to sign this statement. And that's another detailed action coming from the joint statement issued by the Ministry of Finance and the Ghana Securities Industry Association. But again, if you go through that statement, we get the understanding that government is going to offer some terms for these mutual funds, the collective investment schemes, and all the rest. And that will be similar to what will be offered to the individual bondholders. Now, that point is quite interesting because we thought that the individual bondholders might be exempted. So if government is saying that they are going to offer some fresh terms to these individual holders and collective investment schemes, and that will be similar to what they'll offer to individual bondholders, that doesn't mean that individual bondholders might not be exempted after all. There was supposed to be a meeting between the conveners of these individual bondholders that was this afternoon and the Minister of Finance. We don't know whether that meeting came on or not. So it's so interesting. But also, another argument is that they've gotten some assurance about what can be done to, again, protect the industry. So those are some of the things that came out of this agreement that the Ministry of Finance has reached with the Ghana Securities Industry Association.
Yeah, but there's a goal government is looking out for in order to achieve the target that it's seeking to achieve, then to get the IMF agreement. How much do these industries bring on board?
We're still yet to work out the fine details, but it looks like having the banks, the insurers, the capital market operators, or those who are operating in the securities industry, given an agreement that they are comfortable with these terms, it is likely that government could be getting about 60, 70% or 80%. But also, engaging some of these players, you get the understanding that this is the headline memorandum, if I can use that expression, that they've signed up to. And they are still working out the fine details. So even though we have agreed to these proposed terms, that is why when you watch the statement or you read the statement carefully, we get the wording is that XXS have agreed to sign up to the domestic debt exchange program. So if tomorrow any of these players are not satisfied with what government is trying to implement, it may look like there is an exit clause that they can back out. So it appears that government is still working with them to get that fine. Because, for instance, the bit about the clarity on the financial stability fund as well, how are they going to get the access to it? How is the disbursement going to be done and all the rest? And all those fine details are supposed to be given to them by their various regulators. So if you look at the banks, it's Bank of Ghana. If you look at the insurers, it's National Insurance Commission. If you look at the pensioners, it's the National Pensions Regulatory Authority as well. And they need all those fine details in terms of the regulatory forbearance before they again append their signatures to all these documents. So even though they've gotten the agreement for the headline memorandum, there are still things that are being worked out. But indeed, if you look at the numbers, maybe we are getting the understanding that government will be hitting the 80% target.
Okay.
And maybe there's more justification now that exempt individual bondholders. Okay. But there is still argument about what is going to happen if you don't sign to it and what will be the legal terms to push government to pay you. Okay. And also you want to look at...
But having they signed on?
The individual bondholders...
No, not individual, but I mean the bankers and...
They've signed up to the mother memorandum of understanding, that is clear. But some also want to raise the argument about the individual bondholders, okay, about if you don't sign up, what is going to happen to you? And also the bit about government's ability to pay as well, because you look at the numbers and they are not good. And you wish that something could happen to improve government finances so they can honor the payment to you. So it is still early days yet. Maybe the bridge has almost been crossed, and okay, let's see what will happen with respect to the engagement between the Finance Ministry and the individual bondholders, okay, and what we're going to get from next Monday and Tuesday about this whole domestic debt exchange program.
Ah, interesting. Thanks, George, for
Thank you,
the details. All right, now speaking about individual bondholders, there have been weeks of engagement with government's technical team. Both sides have presented their cases and hoping the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, will make that crucial announcement soon. One of their leaders and legal counsel, Martin Pegbu, is pushing for a total exemption for their group. He spoke to Blaise Soga on the pulse.
The case that the finance minister is most likely to exempt individual bondholders, because if you look at the context within which he formed the technical committee, it was that we should go into the committee sittings and show which projects we think government should suspend for this fiscal year in order to create room for the exemption of individual bondholders.
If, as individual bondholders, if government says, well, I'm not able to grant all of your desires, I can only do this by revising the rates for you, will you compromise to that 5% for this year?
Absolutely not, Mr. Soga. We will not compromise. And also, you see, that suggestion for now, for lack of a better word, let's say it looks odd. I'm trying to choose a very diplomatic word. It will look odd because, Mr. Soga, so why would the finance minister send us into a technical committee meeting to go suggest ways of cutting expenditure, only for him to come back and offer 5%, 100% exemption or nothing else? And I believe, hopefully, we should make it. We should make it because it would be, as I said, very odd that he would have set up a committee to look at how to cut expenditure and raise revenue and then come up with 5%. Because, Mr. Soga, if he was to come up with 5%, then it means that we are going to open another round of negotiations. And so it means that what we would have done or what we did at the committee would have been useless. So it doesn't add up. You see the context? Then it means that we're just sent to the committee on a wild goose chase.
Meanwhile, former President John Dramani Mahama has waded into conversations of running a lean government. While delivering a lecture at the United Kingdom-based think tank Chatham House, he has accused government of showing little attention to cutting down expenditure in a period of severe economic crisis.
You may have learned over the past weeks that the Ghanaian government has defaulted on servicing of both external and domestic debt. There's currently a huge uproar over a controversial debt restructuring program, that which the middle class of Ghana could be wiped out if plans to have them forfeit proceeds of government bonds on which they rely for investment and sustenance are followed through. In absolute terms, up to about 6 million people could be deprived of their life savings and investments. Ghana's banking and financial sector could also be under threat of insolvency if no suitable adjustments are made to the debt restructuring plan. Our present economic situation, underscored by our bankrupt status, sharply contrasts with our fortunes over a little over a decade ago. At the time, our economy posted some of the highest growth rates in the world, with a robust and fast-growing non-oil sector. Too many of our economic indicators today are pointing south. We have in the last month entered the hyperinflation era with an inflation rate of 54%. Our currency has in the past few months been counted amongst the worst performing in the world, plummeting by as much as 54% in value within the first 10 months of 2022. Widening budget deficits have characterized economic performance since 2018. A severe cost of living crisis fueled by ever-rising prices of basic goods has imposed extreme hardship on Ghanaians as the government struggles to meet some of its most basic commitments in areas like education and health.
The former president also accused the Akufo-Addo government of running down a vibrant economy left to them by his government through reckless borrowing.
I have been an advocate for dialogue. Before this whole crisis started, I advised the government, I said, hold a national dialogue on the economy. Give what the state of the economy is and let everybody buy into it and understand. And then after that, seek a broad consensus behind your economic program. This suggestion was never taken. And then what we expected to happen actually happened. We had kept raising the red flag since 2019 about government's reckless borrowing program, going onto the Eurobond market every year for $3 billion and not investing it in the productive sectors of the economy, most of that money being used for consumption. And that is what has ended us where we are. And after you've recklessly mismanaged the economy, you don't want to make the same sacrifices. You're asking the people to make all the sacrifices. Sacrifice your bond, I'll pay you in 15 years. How do you know the person will live till 15 years? And yet, correspondingly, government expenditure is increasing. One would have thought that in this crisis, you're not going to increase your debt in this budget by 82 billion over last year. 2023 budget has seen government expenditure increase by 82 billion over 2022. That is not a government that is serious about making the same sacrifices it is asking the people to do. And that is our concern with this debt restructuring program.
He repeated his call on the finance minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, to be sacked.
You don't let the driver who ran you into a ditch after you've managed to pull the car out of the ditch, see him sit behind the wheel again. And I mean, the majority itself, members of the MPP, have said, take this finance minister out. Bring somebody who the public will have more faith in, and because he didn't create the crisis, they'll be better able to have a negotiation and sit down with this person and negotiate in good faith. But the one who's caused the problem is the one you're asking to negotiate with bondholders for a debt restructuring. So that is our concern with the debt restructuring. Of course, government has applied for debt relief under the G20 debt treatment. We had thought that they would take advantage of the DSSI at the time it was announced, but because they did not want to be shut out from the international capital market, wanted to continue borrowing, they refused to access the DSSI. And that is what has led, now the international capital market is shut to you anyway. If you had undertaken the DSSI, it would have suspended your debt service and given you fiscal space, probably would have been able to maneuver out of the situation in which we are. But they refused, and the same result that you were trying to avoid, being shut out of the market, has happened. You've been downgraded to junk status. Ghana's credit is at junk status on the garbage heap. Nobody is going to lend you money. And so unless we get the benevolence of the IMF to shore up our reserves with the 3 billion loan and hold the headmaster's stick over us to let people know that we're behaving ourselves properly in school, then our economy is in tatters. And so that's the problem. What we would have done differently, I would have not borrowed as